because it's going to be kind of an insulating and protective kind of structure. So you see the spleen over here on the side, and then you also, as you start to lift it up, you notice there's this big kind of sac structure here. That's the stomach. Okay, so the greater omentum is attached to the curvature here of the stomach. There's a lesser omentum too that extends up to the liver, but I'm not going to ask you to know that one. Just know the big. If it looks like cargo net, just say greater omentum. Okay, so stomach here, spleen, liver, gallbladder, diaphragm, greater omentum. We're going to move that out of the way. Okay, now coming off of the stomach, we have the small intestine beginning from the stomach. So its stomach's over here, and the small intestine's going to start this direction and then go all the way around in here. Okay, and then we get to large intestine. The difference between small intestine and large intestine is just the diameter of the tube. So if it's a small thin tube like this, looks like it's maybe about three quarters of an inch across, okay, versus this tube where the diameter is more like 1.5 inches. This is large intestine, this is small intestine. Okay?
Small intestine is the start of the stomach?
It's not the start of it, it starts at the stomach.
Okay.
Okay? So we bring food in from the esophagus, comes down and starts getting broken down. Well, there's salivary enzymes and things, but okay, so once it leaves the stomach, it enters into the small intestine. Now the small intestine has 3 different segments that you need to know. Well, there's 3 segments and you need to know them. The first segment initially coming off of the stomach is called the duodenum or duodenum, depending on who says it and the day. Okay, so duodenum is the first segment of the small intestine. So if I were to indicate this portion and you could see that it was close to the stomach, and I asked you for that specific segment, you'd say duodenum. As you continue the small intestine, most of this in the middle is jejunum. I probably wouldn't ask that as a tag question, it'd probably be a word question. So the central segment of the small intestine is the, and then you say jejunum. If I were to ask you the last segment of the small intestine, the last segment is going to be where we transition from small intestine, small tube, to large intestine, big tube. So this last segment is called the ileum. That's the last portion of the small intestine. It's I-L-E-U-M.
Oh, man.
I-L-I-U-M refers to the hip bone. This is I-L-E-U-M, which is small intestine. And there is why spelling matters in anatomy. Okay? So if I were to put a tag here, and you saw that I was pointing at a small tube that was next to a big tube, and asked you for a specific segment, you're going to say ileum. Okay, so small intestine.
So if you asked me a small intestine, what would you say?
If I said, identify this organ in general,
Okay.
you'd say small. All right. The large intestine, again, is the big tube. It's very short in the cat. So it just goes from here to here. In us, in human beings, there's an ascending colon, a transverse colon, a descending colon, a sigmoid colon. It's much longer. In the cat, it's just this little bit here. Okay? But again, large tube tells you it's large intestine. So one specific portion of the large intestine you need to know is this little sac-like portion at the beginning where we transition from the ileum to the large intestine. Oh, there's something. Do you hear that? It's all squishy. Yum. All right. Like there's a mouse in there or something. This little, just kidding. This little sac-like section is called the cecum. So cecum is the beginning of the large intestine, and then we move it. Okay. All right. Now notice that holding all of the intestinal tract together.
Looks like a flower.
It looks like what?
A flower.
Looks kind of like a flower. Yeah. So all of this membrane here with the arteries and veins passing through is called the mesentery. So the mesentery is holding all of the intestinal tract in place, and also providing the vasculature for it. So we get lots of blood supply to the intestines. Since it's a nice long tube, we want to make sure everything's got enough blood for functioning properly. Okay. How are we doing so far? We need a review real quick?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's start at the top. What's this tube?
Trachea.
Underneath it is...
Esophagus.
Okay. What's this pink tube?
Oh, the carotid artery.
Carotid artery. What's the white structure next to it?
Vagus nerve.
Vagus nerve. What's the blue next to it?
Jugular vein.
Jugular vein. Okay. Moving down. What's this layer?
The pericardial sac.
Okay. What's this organ here?
Lungs.
The lungs. What's inside the pericardial sac?
The heart.
Okay. Sometimes we can get lucky. Down under here. I didn't do this earlier. Sometimes we can get our inferior vena cava down here. Maybe we'll find it further down. Anyway, okay. What's this structure right here?
Diaphragm.
Diaphragm. What's this little green guy?
Gallbladder.
What's this organ?
Liver.
What's this structure?
The
Cardiac.
Greater omentum.
Greater omentum.
What organ is this?
Stomach.
stomach.
What organ is this?
Spleen.
Okay. What? Oh, I'll do that in just a second. What's this structure? Thank you for that.
Small intestine.
The small intestine.
This.
Oh, the
Membrane.
membrane.
The flower.
Somebody said it. What? Mesentery. Okay. What part of the intestine am I on generally?
Small intestine.
Okay. What part of the intestinal tract am I in here?
Large.
Okay.
That's the cecum.
What's the specific structure?
Cecum.
Cecum. Okay, it's kind of C-shaped. Cecum. Okay. What is this specific segment of the small intestine right here? Duodenum, because I'm near stomach. Most of this stuff is what? Jejunum. And then,
The small intestine.
yes, this last segment of the small intestine is going to be
Ileum.
ileum with an E. All right, good. One more organ I want to add before I look at some other stuff. That initial curve of the duodenum coming off of the stomach has an organ tucked into it, and it's kind of a tricky organ, probably the trickiest one out of all of them, because it doesn't feel like an organ. It feels like it's just extra fat or something. And down here, so I've pushed the greater omentum up. The stomach is right underneath here. Okay, so this is the beginning portion of the duodenum right here. And do you see, let's see if I have let me grab this. Sometimes it helps to wipe things.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I'm not even done yet. So you see this chunky looking stuff that looks kind of like ground beef or ground turkey? That is the pancreas. So there are two leaves to the pancreas. One of them goes underneath the stomach, and the other one is right there in the curve of the duodenum. Okay, so when you go to look for it, it doesn't feel like much of anything. It looks kind of like fat. So it does help if you kind of have a paper towel to kind of clean it up a little bit, and you can see that kind of chunky, meaty kind of look to it. Okay, now moving on to our filthy cat. Moving on to our urinary system.
What they have?
Got a bunch of coagulated blood in there.
Insert the urinary.
Okay. So we want to find the kidney. The kidneys are retroperitoneal, which means they're going to be they're covered by the parietal peritoneum, but it's covering the anterior surface of them. They're kind of like on the back of the body. So like a kidney punch, somebody punches somebody in the lower back. That's because the kidneys are back here rather than more towards the front. Okay. So they're little round structures on either side of the abdominal cavity. So I'm going to go ahead and try and open up this one.
Is it more to the right?
Hmm?
Is it more to the right of the body?
You have one on the right and one on the left. You have two kidneys. So the kidney is in a renal capsule that you can take off. And there's a bunch of fat around it. Depending on your cat, there'll be more or less fat. So you got to clean it up to find it. Okay, but it's this kind of egg-shaped structure here. And we want to find not just the kidneys, but also the remainder of the urinary system. So that the kidney is where we filter, we create the urine, we create the filtrate that is the urine. And when it leaves the kidney, it's going to go down from the kidney through a ureter to the urinary bladder, which I forgot to write on my board up there, and then it goes out through the urethra. So the ureters attach to the kidneys here more on the medial portion. It's called the hilum of the kidney. So there's a little kind of indentation here on the kidney right here. Bless you.
Thank you.
And that's where the renal arteries and veins come in, and it's also where our ureters are going to be coming out the kidney. So I want to see if we can find our ureters. So remember, arteries and veins are going to be dyed pink and blue. So if you find a structure that looks more kind of whitish, that's probably not going to be an artery or vein. Here's your renal, here's your ureter coming from the kidney. Okay? It's going to come down here to our urinary bladder, which is right here. So there's a couple fat deposits here around the urinary bladder. If it makes it easier for you, you can cut those off. Okay, so this one, it'll be bigger or smaller depending on
Is the bladder?
the cat. Yeah, this is the bladder. Okay. All right, so you can see our ureter comes down and comes in here to the urinary bladder. Let's see. Over here, adjacent to the kidney, you can see the inferior vena cava. And this will continue all the way up
To the heart.
up to the heart. Yeah, sometimes you can see it up here as well. If I were to dig around, I could probably dig around in there and pull it out as well. But sometimes I can find it nice up here. Sometimes I find it nicely down here. All right, and then let's see. So we can find one more. I have one more thing I want to show you, but I'm not seeing it really nicely on this cat. So I will show you on a different cat once I find it. Aw, they're so cute. Oh my gosh. Alright, so here's something you can see on here. So we have the vas deferens of the cat right here. These ducts that are carrying the sperm from the testes. I think we have at least one cat that does not have the fur on the testes. You can actually see the testes. And then we have the vas deferens, which is the tube coming from them. And then this should be the penis, if I could pull it out. I don't want to be that aggressive with the penis. That sounds terrible, doesn't it? Anyway. We do have one cat, I think, that has all of this stuff exposed already. So we will see if we can find a good example of that. And then I'm going to look at the female cat, too, and see if we can find